New polling shows that most Republican primary voters simply don't want to hear the truth. In the latest survey from the New York Times and Siena College, Trump leads Florida Governor Ron DeSantis by 37 points, 54% to just 17% among likely GOP primary voters. All other candidates earned less than 5% of support in the poll, which we should note was conducted before new charges were announced against Trump in the classified documents case, that superseding indictment. If you take out all candidates other than Trump and DeSantis, the survey still shows the former president leading big by a margin of 62% to 31%. The poll also suggests that 56% of Republicans say Trump did nothing wrong in the classified documents case, though it remains to be seen if last week's superseding indictment has any impact on that support. My guess would be no. And as it relates to Trump's actions after the 2020 vote, 75% of Republicans say he was exercising his right to contest the election. Just 19% say his actions threatened American democracy. Charlie Sykes. So this is yet another poll that shows that this is Donald Trump's party, no matter what sort of legal peril he faces himself in. We have just spent the first little bit of this show detailing the new allegations, and it sure doesn't seem like it matters. That same dinner where we played that sound from Will Hurd, all the Republicans were there. It won't surprise you to learn who had the biggest crowd and the biggest reception, and that's Donald Trump.
Yeah, I would say that these polls are unambiguous. So what happened in Iowa was pretty clear. If you wanted to know what the nature of the Republican Party was right now, I mean, he still dominates the party. He goes into Iowa, he insults the governor there, and he's the only candidate that gets the standing ovation. One of the candidates that actually calls him out is booed. So the poll makes it very, very clear that at this point, I mean, here's the reality check, Jonathan. I think you'd have to be naive to the point of being delusional to think that Donald Trump is not going to be the Republican nominee for president despite all of this. And I think you'd have to be naive to the point of being delusional to think that any of these indictments are going to change all of that, because what you have is this alternative reality of the Republican base that sees January 6th as somehow quasi-legitimate. That is willing to overlook all of Donald Trump's lies, all of the crimes, all of the things that he has done. You know, when you add up everything we know about Donald Trump and everything that all of the Republican insiders and members of his own administration have said, and then you look at those polls, and you have to ask yourself, what would it take to actually loosen his hold on the Republican Party? And at this point, Jonathan, I can't think of anything. I can't think of anything. And you saw that on display over the weekend, and you see that in those numbers.
Yeah, Mara, and certainly a general election might be a different story. These are things that you can't imagine these indictments help him with undecided or swing voters next year. But right now in the Republican primary, we are at 2 indictments, likely a third, maybe this week, and nothing changes.
Well, you know, it really speaks to the extent to which Donald Trump has gotten a large portion of the Republican base to identify with him. And so the more under attack he becomes, almost like a bunker mentality has developed among the Republican base, and they just dig in even deeper with him. You know, one of the questions that I had, and I was wondering if maybe Charlie might be able to shed some light on this, is, Charlie, you know, more and more, especially as candidates like Ron DeSantis have risen, who, while not a populist himself necessarily, certainly is far to the right of most voters in the country. Do you think that this is an overall realignment that we're seeing among Republican voters with right-wing populism, or is this really just more cult-like behavior about Donald Trump himself and Trumpism?
Well, that's a fascinating question. I think both things can be true at the same time. I mean, Ron DeSantis seemed to be under the illusion that he could run a kind of, you know, I'm Donald Trump without the baggage, and he's gone for all the social issues. But as I think is becoming increasingly apparent, this is not an election about issues. It's not an issue. It's not one where you're going to have a referendum even on wokeism. It really is about Donald Trump, and it is about Donald Trump's personality. reality. But at the same time, you are seeing this this hard realignment on the right. There was a convention of young conservatives recently in Washington, D.C., and the reports out of there would suggest that they're not interested in traditional conservative values or even fiscal issues. They like the social red meat issues. So I think the hangover of this is going to linger for a very, very long time. I think decades from now we'll look back on this as very much a realignment, even after Donald Trump leaves the stage.